People ask me all the time why I entered the field of early childhood education. Why would you want to open a daycare center is what they would say. And the answer is because I wanted to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And why do I say that? Because 11 years ago, when it was time for me to go back to work after the birth of my 11-year-old son, I searched high and low for a place where I felt comfortable leaving him and going back to work, so that I could continue to make a living for us. Well, within that time period, within about 3 months or so, he probably was in 4 to 6 daycare centers or early childhood education facilities. And I have horror stories about the things that I found when I did surprise visits. What I would do is on my lunch break, I would just go to wherever he was, I would just go to and do a pop-up visit just to see how he was doing. He was a new baby. He was, it was his first introduction to strangers. So I would go and just to see how he was doing. And I was appalled by some of the things that I found. So even though I really couldn't necessarily afford to, I decided to stay at home, to be a stay-at-home mom. So I resigned my position with the company that I was working for at that time and decided to care for my own baby. But at that time, I still needed to figure out what needed to be done. At that time, I was a single mom, and I had to be able to provide a life for myself and for my children. And so I fasted for 3 days. I didn't eat anything, and I drank 100% fruit juices just to kind of sustain myself, to figure out, God, what am I going to do with this baby, and how am I going to make a living? And at that point, I felt like I heard God tell me, open your own. So what I began to do is to begin to prepare myself for that. I went back to school. Even though I already had a bachelor's degree, I went back to school and took courses in early childhood education, began to network with other daycare center owners and try to figure out how I could enter this field, because it was very important for me, for working mothers, school-age mothers, teen moms, of which I was one as well, to be able to have a comfortable place that they can send their children and feel safe, so that their children could feel safe and so that they could feel safe. And I wanted to make sure that the people who were there were people who genuinely loved children, who weren't just doing it to make money, who just couldn't work anyplace else, so they decided, I'll go work at a daycare center. So that began to be my mission. So it took me 9 years to finally get it together. But in 2009 is when we opened the doors of Good Shepherd Infant and Toddler Center. And so because of that, our motto is raising the standard of childcare, because that was my goal. That was my mission, to raise the standard of childcare. I never wanted anybody to come in here and see some of the things that I saw when I went. Excuse me, we gotta stop. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't want anybody to ever come into a daycare center and see some of the things that I saw when I surprised them to come and see my son. So those are that's the reason why I opened Good Shepherd. And also, once I got married and I had a daughter, she was diagnosed with a language developmental delay. So that kind of re-inspired me to make the program even better. So now we make sure that we focus on language development, even in the infant room. I require the teachers to talk to the children while they're diapering them. Anytime they're doing anything, they have to get on the floor with them. They have to read to them often. Whatever it takes to talk to them, and not just talk to them, but talk to them in regular language and in proper grammar, because we're developing their language skills. So we want to make sure that we're developing them into people and what I found also is that you will write the way that you speak. So even though they're younger, if we train them to speak correctly, that when they become older, when it matters, when they're taking those standardized tests to get into college, they will already be able to write well because they speak well. So those things are very important to me. So that's why I say we're developing the whole child. And because I was a single mom at one point, I also tried to help the whole family. I'm so compassionate for moms who bring their children here, who are going to school, who are working and going to school, who are struggling with trying to raise these children. We do everything that we can to make sure that they have the resources that they need, because that helps the children too, because that kind of leads into child abuse. So in essence, we're trying to prevent child abuse and neglect by helping the families with whatever needs that they have. So that's why we're here.